G'day punters, welcome back to the Punters Academy review show of Randwick Saturday. John Walter from racingwatch.com.au. We had a very testing, wet, sticky track on Saturday.
We had that, and then we had the lovely Kensington on Monday to really rub it in. It was a true long weekend, but crikey, it's raining again today. When's it going to stop?
Well, in Brisbane's been showers pretty much all week, isn't it?
Yeah, and they got a horrible. Josh said the track was pretty weird there on Saturday too. It was pretty fell apart a bit. So everywhere's got a lot of wear and tear on it at the moment.
Yeah, interesting that Doomben track. Not that we're really covering Doomben, but the first couple of races were probably more like a 5, and then the next 3 were probably more like a 5.5 to 6, and then sort of got progressively worse to sort of around about a 6.2. So it was never an 8. In my mind, I think what happened is that they just continue to water this track, regardless of what the weather's going to do. I think that's just the way Jim Roberts manages the track, and it's a totally different track to Eagle Farm, because Eagle Farm you can put it.
You can dump on it, yeah.
Yeah, you can dump on it, and it just drains so well, and it races like a good track all the time. So I think it was probably firmer underfoot than what it looked like on the surface. But yeah, it was no doubt chopping out on the surface for sure.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's exactly how Kenzo looked. Oh no, where was it? It was a different race. It was Port Macquarie the other day. The times never come out that bad, but you just see stuff flying everywhere, and I think they react to that. They downgraded Port a couple of times. I haven't looked at the times, but a couple of tracks like that seem to be falling apart on the surface. Anyhow, Randwick.
Tale of different tracks. I mean, Tamworth the other day, they're running their records and in some of the races, and they gave it out a dead 4. So go figure.
I saw that was a 1 point something, wasn't it?
Well, actually, it turns out the verified times bring it back to about a 1.7, but still in that sort of faster range. Faster good range, not dead. We don't run records on dead tracks, right? Anyway, let's go to Randwick Saturday. So we'll start off with the 2-year-old Open over 1,100 metres.
We'll talk about the track first there.
Yeah, we will talk about the track. Track was a 12. Lanes 2 between the 800 and the 400 provided the best positions, and lanes 10 to 19 in the straight were best overall. Last 600 raced slower, so there was effective pace on most of these races. It was certainly the first part of the card, but the last section, the last 600, was probably more like a 13 on our scale. So.
Which makes sense watching them, right? Because the tempos look out of order, like as in the differential between sort of to the 600 and home looks out of order. They don't look like they go as quick as the clock suggests in most of these races. So it makes sense that the last portion of the track is raced significantly slower.
Well, you can see that just in the last 600 times, even if you're looking at official times. What was race 1, 38.91, 39.11, 41.38, 39.37. I mean, these are, pretty atrocious times. So
diabolically slow, yeah.
Okay, so let's start off with the 2-year-old then. In terms of position, I felt that you could be anywhere sort of 3 lengths or forward was probably the place to be, because it was, still difficult to make ground unless you were getting to that right part of the track very quickly. Towards the outside, but look, Bandy's boy did a good job here, despite it being a bit of a crab in the straight. It looked like it got to that best section just by default, I suppose. But despite all of that, time and other measures for me suggest this horse could go on. Certainly, if they continue to go over the winter months, and Danny Williams is just flying.
Yeah, I couldn't believe in a million years that it mapped outside leader. For it to get outside leader, I knew I was wrong very quickly, and thought maybe the horse may pay the price at the business end, but does anything but. The favourites certainly tagged it everywhere, and every chance, like everything in this race, says this horse has done something pretty special. They run fast, early sections, good overall time. The horse has sat outside leader, done the most work in the race. It's done this in the straight. I don't think this was a plan. The horse maybe had a plan, but the rider, I don't think, did. And Zugotcha, who was really impressive on debut, even if it was that weird track, had it cold in the run and couldn't get near it. So I agree with you. I think the second horse is a pretty good horse too. And the winners, and Danny Williams, Jesus, he's just, like you say, everything he touches at the moment.
Yeah, stable's flying. I mean, there's a reason for that, but we won't talk about it. Um, but still all credit to them. Certainly nothing sinister is what I'm implying.
No.
Yeah, they're just going. I mean, they've had 15 winners their last 100 runners, and I think winning about 36% on turnover at starting price. So you don't go better than that.
No, and I think, like you said, these horses can go forward to Brisbane for sure. Even the third horse was first up, Command Approved. Bit of a limited type, as in a fast horse that's maybe not super suited on tough track conditions like this. Was hard fence as well. If it sort of flummed a drier surface somewhere and could dominate the race, it can improve as well. I think the first three across the line here can travel to Brisbane or a similar race in the near future.
So Captain Bond started single figures, and the trainer suggested it's going to go on barrier trial. It struggled in the going, went awfully really. And a guinea.
It had the earmuffs on, right? Which is
handle the conditions.
And the earmuff showed no speed whatsoever with the earmuffs on. It was just a totally different horse on Saturday.
You're talking about Captain Bond, you're saying?
Yeah, Captain Bond had earmuffs on for the first time Saturday, and it showed good speed, like natural speed its first start. Saturday, it showed none.
Well, it raced in the earmuffs first time Saturday.
That's what I mean, yeah.
They'd had them on previously pre-race, and they took them off pre-race, and also had the pacifiers on too. So, yeah, absolutely shocking, and pretty easy on the fair too, that horse. So, interesting. Anyway, race 2. Let's get on to the 1100 metre race, which is the midweek 72, I suppose we could call it. For Sunborn, they've gone out fast again here. What do you say about these, John?
Yeah, it was just surprising. Like everyone obviously came out here with, I thought the start of the race sort of dictated the end, as in 4 jockeys coming out and carving each other up completely. And it was sort of left to be the survival of the fittest. I actually thought the horses up on speed were 2 of the better runs in the race. And even though Sunborn was, 73 days between runs and only coming off a short synthetic trial, something had to run on, and it was the one that sort of kept it simple, I guess. Just raced back, relaxed, didn't try to do anything silly in the straight, took the inside runs, and all merit to it. But I did like the runs of Compassionate, and I thought Impulse Control, even though it's been up for a long time, continues to try very hard and race very well.
It's the horse I had something on the race, Winning Verse. It pulled up slow to recover and didn't handle the ground at all. So maybe a bit of an excuse there, but yeah, I didn't find the winner. I didn't back the winner. I couldn't have found it at that price. So.
No, and I think, like you said when you were talking earlier, that these horses trapped in this no man's land were probably the ones that struggled to finish the races off. I don't think anything really won that was stuck in this middle ground. They were sort of either followed that 2 lane or got right to the outside. So forgiving of these horses, but it's not a bad race. It'll certainly translate to another midway, you would say, or something similar.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair enough. Were there any other excuses?
Not literally, only Winning Verse, and it was probably just completely a fitness thing. It looks like it just completely tied up late. Okay,
let's get on to the Provincial Highway, race 3. They've gone out fast again here. Mr. Hustle's got the job done. They've run a very poor last section here, and 400 and 200. So Keen Contributor got held up at a critical stage in the race, I thought, and probably cost itself the race as a result. But I suppose that's academic. What did you think about these, John?
I think you're right. I think it would have been completely flattered if it did win, because it was a horse that sort of would have done no work in the run and run over the top of a horse that had done a power of work in the run. He missed a hustle. This was just a monster effort to be driven out of the gate. I don't know why. Then to sort of sit 4 wide and then slowly give up whatever advantage he's had by being that close to a fast speed. Then he drifts back. And then he takes off on the bend and maintains that run. Like, it all makes sense now when you see, like, it's impossible for a horse to do this and run time if it did, we'd be winning the bloody Kosciuszko or winning any race you'd ever want to see. So it makes sense that, what was it, 41 or something they've run home in. And it makes sense that key contributor had to run on because something had to. I think all merit with the winner. The second horse completely flattered. Probably should have won, but that would have only increased it, the measure of how flattered it was.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. And look, Brazen Impact went terribly, didn't handle the ground, and Tommy Berry eased it up in the straight, so beaten nearly 60 lengths on the 7-day backup. I think that was its 5th run, second preparation, so maybe time to see it head to the paddock.
Horses to follow. I thought Jousting did a pretty good job first up outside lead. Wasn't horrendous considering how fast they went, and did sort of tough it out. Just a really one-pace type that needs a mile plus. This is him back here, and Formidec, I think that's as good as he goes. I think it's probably the winner and Jousting over much further, and maybe another run or two were the only horses I could be supportive of.
Super helpful.
In an ordinary race.
Super helpful, just can't handle ground conditions like that. It's probably dead at worst for it, I'd say. So I'd be forgetting it went around. It got beaten a long way as well, 16.5 lengths. 2 to 9s, they said it wasn't comfortable in the going. It's pulled up with slow recovery. So, yeah, I'm not sure what you say about it. Once again, it's probably a horse that doesn't like it much worse than sort of a good to dead.
You couldn't find a race with many more warning signs on it, especially for a horse that was out the back and ran on. You got a favourite failing, an extreme tempo, a horrible last section. So anything that sort of flashed late there, you'd be very wary of going forward.
Yeah, garbage race. I mean, it's worst time race or time race rating of the day by a long way. So I don't think there's much to say about it. Let's get on to race 4, the 88 over 1,800 metres. They've gone out average tempo here. John Irish Sequel managed to win the race. Carp Fever missed the kick a couple of lengths. Look, I thought Brenton Abdallah Erd here, where he jumped so well on Moran. I mean, I was probably partly talking to him. Yeah, partly talking to him a kick. I think he could have led, and that may have made a difference to where the horse finished. I
just hate to see what you're watching there, like to strangle a horse and create a problem like it's over racing even now. I agree with you. Like it doesn't work out that well. Plus, he would have had the favourite cast wide, no cover, which is not a bad thing. And it's not as if he was working to be there. So I agree with you.
I think he could have led. Look, I mean, the horse is running the first run in Australia, beaten 13.5 lengths, but it was behind Figured Over and in a better race. And its French form has good numbers around it. So, so this horse might still improve and certainly make a horse in the winter months. So I wouldn't be sacking it completely, despite the fact that it's been beaten 11.25. Other than that, Gone By I thought was a bit disappointing.
Yeah, driven to lead. It's just lost a bit of its speed. Obviously, they thought they'd dictate, and it just battled. I think it's had every conceivable. Both the winner and second horse are only second up from a spell. It had the jump on them fitness wise. So yeah, no excuses for Gone By. The winner and second horse have done a good job though. I thought every chance in the run. Good ride from Joseph Don to get outside the leader on what's it called, Alias, whatever you pronounce it. It's gone pretty good at its second run in Australia, and on its overseas form too. It can improve. So probably those winter horses that we're looking at that can continue to race well. Those first two. Wherever the second horse goes, you'd be expecting it to be very, very hard to beat. And and no knock on the winner as well. He wound up strong through the line. I think that's pretty solid form. Yeah,
the winner ran second best last 200 rating of the day and fifth best last 400 rating, second best last 800, fourth best last 600. So, it's gone pretty good. But definitely I'm saying Moran can do better than that. I'd like to see it bowl along and maybe a slightly dry surface, but might help it as well. On to race 5.
You'll get a price about it wherever it goes.
Which one, sorry?
You'll get a price about your horse wherever it goes. The first two across the line won't be. So yours is a good, interesting horse to follow.
Yeah. In the fifth, American President here got the job done, getting to the right part of the track. Bless its heart. They've gone out solid tempo here, and I couldn't have been happier in the run. I just can't believe they bet what they bet. But anyway, I suppose
the betting was
right.
very interesting. And this horse that failed, I don't know what they say. I don't think they found an abnormality with its sense of honour. It basically, it showed a bit of speed first up over 1,000, goes to 12. It's back last here, and basically withdraws from the turn, and not many questions asked. But
failed to handle the ground.
Here's your little fella out here doing his little left-hand turn.
It did exactly what it did at Canterbury, didn't it? So, and I had that race at Canterbury pretty good.
It does look like you're watching his hands. He's definitely not steering the horse out there. And I was surprised when I read the steward's report to see that he said the horse took charge and basically ran to the outside fence before racing very tractably once it did get to that position, which is, like you're saying, nearly identical to what it did at Canterbury. It did look like a plan watching it live. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens when the outside fence is not on fire at a meeting when this horse goes around, because it's obviously going to be very well backed again, most likely wherever it starts, and it's more than likely to go bush again.
Well, they're going to experiment with a different bit, so says the trainer, and there's obviously a warning being placed on the horse in regards to its manners, but I'm very happy with its manners in the last couple of runs.
Well, you are, and you've got a result, but the horse is clearly flying too. Like, even though he's found the right section, he's absolutely airborne, which is strange considering the pressing. But he did run into a horse called Overpass at, I think, Bathurst or somewhere in a maiden and got beat one day. That's turned out to be a pretty good Bathurst maiden.
Indeed. Is there anything else you want to say about the race?
No, I thought Barossa Rossa was pretty good. Sat outside leader and had a few things go wrong. They didn't go super fast there, especially considering the other times on the day, but sort of got stuck and then lost in no man's land. Thought it battled on well, but all honours with the winner, and just a little bit wary because of sense of honour and not really taking part in the race. But I think a few things went American President's way. Congratulations to those who found him, and I'd just be wary of him next time around.
We'll see what he lines up in. Race 6, the 1478. They've gone out above average clip here. This was Quintello's race, and it's done a really good job again. Absolutely flying, this horse, and couldn't have been happier. It was. I must admit, I wound my bet in a little bit on this horse, but still a reasonable result. Sensationalism seemed to sort of get back and over race, didn't it?
Yep. That's it, back last in the red cap. Yep.
Aaron Moore, which was sort of 5-1 SP, got beaten over 30 lengths. What do they say about it?
I just think
didn't handle the heavy ground.
It didn't jump. It basically never took part.
Well, it didn't go any good on that Canterbury track either, which was a 12.4 on my numbers.
It was very tired late, that's for sure.
There was any of these others that you want to talk about?
Well, I think you go a long way to find a worse ride than this horse on Devil's Triangle. So half jumps okay, sort of half looks to go forward, then has a look over to the shoulder and ends up dragging it. So it's still running third there, still half looking for a spot, and then puts the reverse on and ends up last behind them and then goes up the fence. I don't think it made any difference to the finishing order, but it's a horse that was going very well before this, and if you sort of factor in the ground and other things, I think this is a horse that can improve significantly without surprising next time around. But all honours with Quintello, I agree, like just a very good horse. It was 4 weeks between runs, 1,200 up to 1,400, coming off a good surface to a heavy track. Done a very good job, and I think James McDonald got off and said that it'll be competitive wherever it goes. I think that's pretty obvious, and I think he's spot on. It's probably only got upside. It's a very nice horse that's just the clear standout in this race from a class perspective.
Just on Devil's Triangle, I mean, it had 3 runs in its first prep, and this was its 7th run, second prep. Does it need a break?
Well, it could. I just completely forgiving this run. I definitely wouldn't be looking to line up on it 2 weeks in a row. But look at so she's gone from here to there to back on the fence and then up the middle by herself. It's one of the more incredible rides I've ever seen. Covered more ground than the bloody Leyland brothers.
Indeed. Okay, let's talk about race 7.
That second horse wasn't a bad run either. It was only second up off a win at Goldman. I don't think it can go anywhere near the heights as Quintello at the moment, but it's staying in this grade. It can run well. Is it called Elusive Jewel?
Elusive Jewel, yeah.
Yeah, no excuses really. It's had a little bit wide, but that was it. But I think chased a pretty smart horse, and obviously they beat the rest comfortably.
Yeah. Okay, let's get on to the 1100 metre sprint there. What do we got here? Fast tempo here, and Matt did the job. God bless its heart in style. It was just like taking money, this one.
You would have had like a brief moment there when the what's he called? Dragonstone
came up underneath it.
Did you have a brief little? I was watching it going, oh, and I know Dragonstone back to front, he can't really sustain a run, but holy shit, he let down like he was going to.
Yeah, he did, and I must admit there for 1 second I got a bit of a fluster, but put it away pretty easily too, and soft on the line, and this horse has gone to another new peak. Since it's been gelded, it's just a different horse, as they've said, and it can win better races for sure, I think. I don't think there's much else to say. It ran the best 8, 6, 4 and 2 sectional rating of the day, and clearly accounted for these. I don't know what else you say about any of the others, really.
No, there was one run there, Lord Olympus, that was 154 days off that, and I thought he just tried really hard. That's him in the red cap with the pom-pom coming. Oh, sorry, he's the one that cuts it off. He's in the blue cap with the white pom-pom, and I thought he just tried really hard. A level below the winner, there's no doubt, and so's the second horse. He's actually flying. I think they've worked out Dragonstone just needs to be ridden absolutely cold, and he's not in the same world as the winner, and neither is Lord Olympus, who's running into fourth there. Just thought he had a few things against him Saturday, and he's a horse that can bob up when he gets things to suit. He's a pretty strong horse, Lord Olympus, but yeah, all merit with the winner. He'll probably end up in an Everest the way he's going.
Yeah, there's been a bit of talk about that. I mean, you still have to improve a fair bit, I think, to win an Everest. I mean, it's obviously a markedly improved horse, but yeah, we'll have to see what lines up. But yeah, if he keeps making improvement the way he's going, for sure, he'd be a chance.
There's not too many sprinters on the up, is there? That's why I think they got tied up in horses at the moment. But he does have the perfect racing style, and that's a good. What's the old 11 and 1200 metres at Randwick's a good box to tick.
Well, I'd rather be on it than say that other horse, that Snowden horse, that Marzud. It's been going very well, winning.
Yeah, that's a great comparison.
I think it's a better chance than that, and it's probably around 10 or 12 to 1 in the market for the Everest. So,
good comparison.
Okay, let's get on to the race 6, the mile. Race 8, I should say. The mile 78. They've gone out average tempo here. Le Chevalier managed to get the job done. There was a bit of a bumping duel between Phillipsburg, Rachel, and James McDonald there on the favourite. I was on the favourite, and no real excuse. It sort of plugged after it.
I like it when you back a loser. It brings you back to me for at least the next 25 minutes. I like it.
I'll back plenty of losers, don't worry. But Saturday worked out well. But anyway, look, it was the second pick in the race to win it, but I just didn't pull the trigger on it. I was happy just to have something on the favourite and go around, and it was pretty solid too in the market.
Those wide draws, dragging back and riding it a little bit. I think if you became a little bit too confident here, it was very hard to reel in. And this like the winner, plenty of merit in its run. It's a winner over 1800. It was always going to be hard to run down. And when it sort of found the right lane a bit quicker than James did, and he was set a task, it was never going to really reel it in, was it? It was just set too big a task. But easy to say now. But the winner was solid. I'm not sure about this race. Ting Tong lost a plate. Tampering pulled up lane.
Yeah,
The winner's
few
solid, but I'm not
question
sure
marks.
how far this form travels.
Well, look, it's probably right up there with its best figures. And it was third up, so I don't know how much upside it's got.
And there's not many races on the day where you've got the bit of the charge of the like a bunch field like this. There was not much of this going on for the whole day. They do open up a little bit late, but not really. I think this is one of the more suspect form races. Like this horse is dead set solid, but I think that was its Christmas. Everything lined up for it.
Okay, race 9. A bit of controversy here with Present being scratched at the gates, which made Taxi just immoral, I suppose, once that happened. No pressure on it early, and it just was allowed to dictate average tempo. Got the job done again, going really well, this horse, and that's its best performance to date as well. So be interesting to see what happens with it. I suppose they'll continue. It's only fourth up there, so it'll probably just keep running around in these benchmarks on the Saturday, and if it just keeps doing what it's allowed to do there, it'll be competitive.
It's amazing what one scratching can do. Like, yeah, I saw it was into sort of 5-4 before the start, and thought that was pretty crazy. And as soon as President came out, and it was 10-9 on, or 4-5 on, or whatever, it was a much better price for me. It's amazing how things can change, and shows how you've got to be on the ball, haven't you? Because it was a risk that President was going to either make it work or track it everywhere it went, and it was a serious danger to it. But as soon as it came out, it was game on. He actually rode the horse really well, I thought.
Did a great job.
Didn't go too quick. A little bit flattering, I think. Like you say, I don't think the horse actually went tremendously well. It just was like, you had Surf Dancer first up chasing it, Zing first up chasing it, Nicky's Fling, who's just going okay chasing it, and Milkman didn't take part. So I don't think the winner's performance was anything exciting. It just did what it should have done.
Indeed, you're right. It started 4-5 on the fair, and I suppose after you take commission into account, that's 8-11, $1.72 in the old, and yes, I suppose it just keeps doing what it does. Why change the recipe? It's going well for them.
That's the best part about this horse. When he gets conditions to suit him, or any sort of real condition, he just does the same thing. So he's easy to line up. He's actually a great horse to bet against or to back, because you know what you're going to get usually.
Okay,
great trainer.
For sure.
I think he's the most underrated trainer in the country. I honestly do.
I'm not going to get into that.
No, I just think that he's forgotten. Often I'm not saying that anything like syndicate, but like punting wise, people forget him because he's obviously very well backed often and gets the job done, whether that's a stable influence or people being smart about the way he operates. But I think he doesn't get the credit he deserves, and maybe some people out there don't want him to get that credit by the sound of that. But
he's like, I've got him 3 pounds worse than your best trainer.
Yeah.
In Sydney Metro, so I certainly respect what the numbers say there, but and you're right, they're outperforming, so that you can't argue too much.
And I'd be very surprised if, when money comes for his horses, that they don't perform better than when they drift, but that's a different story. All right.
He's good at following patterns, Jay Price.
He is.
Okay, so let's get on to the last, the 1478. They've gone out average tempo again here. Kim Moore managed to get the job done here with Bethencourt. Ran pretty slick sectionals. Really put it to them. I think it lost a plate as well, didn't it?
It did lose a plate, yeah. Couple of lost plates. You called it lost plate, slow recovery, respiratory noises.
Yeah, it's got to be scoped. So.
And Toretto slow to recover as well.
Yes. Well, I'm not sure what to say about the winner. It's certainly the best figure it's ever gone, clearly, but obviously the conditions helped it, and it was racing up there on speed. So good job by Jay Ford getting the job done there in that race. Interestingly, it was 37 days off coming into that race too. So
Yeah, I'd had it. I think it failed, and I don't know whether they forced it to trial. It had trial between runs. It definitely coming off a failure. I was going to mention that not many stables that had an irregular heartbeat last time. Not many stables can turn them around off a failure better than Kim Moore.
Done a good job.
Yeah, completely.
Any more out of that race?
No, I think this. I don't know what sort of target this Mahi's Angel sort of working towards, but its run was good first up at Tamworth in the wrong part of the track, and then it went okay again here. I just don't know where it'll line up. The favourite I thought went really well first up. It's a victim of its pattern, but I couldn't make an excuse for that beaten margin, even though it sort of cut up underneath them. It's just all credit with the winner. This is, too much caviar is very honest. He's a little bit similar to Taxi. He'll probably win a race when the moon's aligned, but he just doesn't have a turn of foot or anything special to put a race away, and he needs everything to fall his way to win.
Okay, horses to follow. What do you say?
Easy, an obvious one. Is it Alias? Looks very well set up to run very well wherever he goes. I think I had 2 on the day. I even wrote them out just because you keep trumping me on these with and Lord Olympus was the other one I was interested to follow. That's it.
Okay, for me, Bandy's Boy out of race 1, the 2-year-old, Andermatt out of race 7, and the other horse that I mentioned, Murad, if they're going to let it bowl along and maybe get a slightly drier surface, I think it can go better than its performance showed on paper. So we'll leave it with those 3.
I'll be adding it to my black book. When you teach me how to use it, I'll be adding it to my black book.
Okay, let's get into the questions this week. First one is from Danny Jackson. Why are the track ratings always so wrong at Newcastle? Well, I think they're wrong everywhere. I think that's the point. Having a look at some recent meetings from Newcastle on the 21st of the 4th, they've given it out a dead 4 on our numbers, a slow 6.7. 9 for the 4th, they said heavy 10. It was an 8.3. 31st of March, they were pretty accurate. They said 10, I say 10.4. 28 for the 3rd, between a 7. Well, they actually upgraded it. They went 7 up to a 6. I'm saying it was 5.4. And on the 5th of March, they said it was an 8, and I'm saying it was more like in the 4 range, so dead 4 range. So, look, I think it's just a problem everywhere. I don't think necessarily that Newcastle is offends more than some of the others. But it's not good enough either way.
I had someone else ask you about the horse. I think it was Port Macquarie, and I had a quick look. I think on average they put up every time they put up an 8, it was never above a 4. It was always in the 3 range. Tari's notorious for it. Like it races fast when they put up 7s and 8s. And like you say, it's not always just wrong in that direction. But the patterns seem to be very similar. Like the same tracks, they make the same mistakes. So I don't understand what they're using to gauge. Is it straight penetrometer or I'm not sure, but it's it is consistent, but it's consistently wrong.
The vibe. That's it. Okay, next one's from David. Have you rated the final race at Caulfield on Saturday in comparison to the earlier shoot races? Going off the official times, the race seems to have rated very poorly, even adjusting for the slow tempo in the early and middle sections. Has the track played significantly slower than the earlier races, or is there another explanation? Well, there is another explanation, some of which I'll reveal. Look, on time figures, David, Midwest ran 106 on my numbers, and Extreme Warrior a 99. So in terms of pace, though, I don't agree that there was a lot of difference between the 2 races. I think to the 600 on track and distance standards, there was probably only about a half a length difference between them. The way I do the times, Midwest was 6-7 pound better time figure, but in terms of race quality, that equates to less in this particular instance, a lot less, in fact. I suppose what I'd say is that, trying to determine race quality and understand times is a lot more than just studying the times themselves. There's a lot of other factors to it, and it's a bit complex to go into all the detail, but at the same time, I suppose that's my IP. But yeah, look, Extreme Warrior didn't race anywhere near as well as Midwest, and Midwest is just flying. And I couldn't believe that was actually one result where I got an outstanding over, marked at 11-8, and they're better around that 6-7-1. It was just incredible. Maybe people were doubting it at the 1100 to be strong, but yeah, good result. And look, Extreme Warrior looks to have come back well. It raced outside lead there first up. I mean, she's just so good, Jay Carr. From the gate, she just balances these horses and just gets them into the right position and gives them every possible chance. She's an outstanding rider. Interesting race on that day too. On Saturday was Grand Slam's race. It just seems to leap out of the ground. Third up, I think it was on Saturday, was it? Yeah. It was third up. It's done that its last two preparations. It just leaps ahead, 5-6 lengths. So it's going to be a horse that I suppose I'll go to Warrnambool with it, and see what happens there. But that's the answer to that question, or as much as I want to say. Russell, who's going to be the next Winx to come out of the Queensland Winter Carnival? No idea. Will we ever see another one? Who knows?
I'd be happy to find a mini Winx.
A mini Winx? You got one?
I haven't seen anything that looks remotely like Winx for a while. Shelby 66 maybe for a fortnight there.
Yes, it was some good performances there. Ginger Nuts has asked a question of you, John. What weight would Allegron receive in the Melbourne Cup, either contesting in the Andrew Ramsden or the SA Derby? You want to give that one to me?
Why would he even ask me? Just because his name's Ginger Nuts, I think he must be trying to relate to me. But yeah, I'm not even going to have a crack at that.
I will. I'll have a go. I think the last SA Derby winner to win the Melbourne Cup might have been Sub-Zero.
Jesus, 92. Was it?
Was that 92 or something? Mummify won a Caulfield Cup after winning the Derby. Look, Allegron went into that race yesterday, that VRC St Ledger, as an official 99 raider. We don't know what it's got yet as a penalty for winning that. I'm saying that the Andrew Ramsden might be the more logical choice because it is a ballot-free race going into the Melbourne Cup. And if it was to be able to win that race as well as with that penalty considered yesterday, I think it'd probably only get around about 52 and a half, if that. The Melbourne Cup in the last, maybe half a dozen years has been more of a quality handicap treatment at the weights than a true handicap, meaning the best horses don't always carry as much weight as they should, essentially. I suppose that's a layman's way of explaining it. Yes, so there's the answer to your question, I suppose, around about that 52 and a half for mine, but I'm not sure what that all means.
Yeah, that's like, exactly. Like, I know what you're kind of pointing at. They're a bit condensed, so, a nice horse may only still carry 56 and a half or even less. So it's, while 52 sounds attractive somewhat, got to be careful what the ones above it are carrying.
Well, Explosive Jack last year carried 54.
Yeah.
And it won, I think, the Tassie Derby, the Sydney Derby, the Adelaide, and then I think it got beaten a length in the Queensland Derby, maybe. And so it was probably a little better credential than Allegron, and it carried 54 in last year's Cup as a guide. Okay, let's get on to me. Who's me?
That's you.
That's not
I
me.
don't know. This is a Twitter person named me.
Me, Twitter person named me. A newbie to the game, which is great. We want those. He asked you, John, if you guys could cover on the show what new bettors or what should new bettors to racing focus on when evaluating a race. I've absolutely no idea where to start. So anything around how to value form versus track condition versus weight, etc., would be really helpful. Do you want to go first, or?
Yeah, because I'll attack it from an artistic point of view. I'll call it that because it sounds very exciting. I think it depends what sort of brain you've got. If you're someone who's a mathematical person who wants it all to make sense that way, or whether you're a more artistic person, is how you attack it. But if you're an artistic person, which I think there's more angles to, because there's a lot of smart people attacking the mathematical approach, and it's very hard to beat them. But I think you use their knowledge. So you need to source a starting point, whether something about race quality and tempo, to help you to understand what really happened in a race, and then, trying to use a bit of art form to work out what happened at certain points, and whether horses can improve or not is probably is how I kind of approach it. Paul very differently, but I think there's so much good information available now. It's impossible to do it all yourself, and you need to kind of outsource it as much as possible, and then apply your own stamp to it. And you've got to work out what that is. I think whether you can more deeply analyze something mathematically, or whether you can add a bit of artistic paintbrush to it.
Okay, so from my point of view, coming from that ratings bent and that more traditional way of doing the form and rating races and horses, I'd say start off by trying to get a hold of Don Scott's books, The Winning Way, or Winning More. Winning More is just an updated version of The Winning Way. Essentially, the class system's totally different now than what it was, but the fundamentals, I think, or many of the fundamentals he talks about, haven't really changed at all in terms of the way I approach the form. Obviously, I'm smarter now than what I was then, and I know a lot more, and I've got a lot more tools at my disposal and a lot more powerful data at my disposal. But essentially, it all starts with understanding the fundamentals. So rather than, focus on the tipsters on Twitter and hearing what someone says and trying to place weight on it, I'd ignore all of that and start at the Don Scott level. I think that's a good place for anyone to start. You can even, depending on where you live, you can borrow that book from the library or some libraries, like National Library. If you are going to get a copy of it, you'll probably have to pay around $500 to get one. They're very hard to get a hold of these days if they're in decent condition. But lots of reading, in terms of other books. I would have read thousands of books and scholarly articles, on racing and handicapping and time and different aspects of racing that I use, and many of which I use today in my repertoire. But literally tens of thousands of hours of knowledge and practice goes into getting any good in this game. So you've got to be prepared to dedicate a whole chunk of your spare time.
I think me just gave up.
Well, we shouldn't, because there's great opportunities.
No, I agree.
Yeah, in some ways it's a lot harder now than what it was, but I still think that there's some great opportunities for those that put the effort in. Most don't, and that's why I suppose there's an edge for people like myself and yourself, John, and plenty of other listeners.
And high attrition rate, yeah.
Yeah, high attrition rate, yeah, but don't give up.
I'll send I'll send him the link too. I'll send through the links to those books. I think they're online now. I think. I think I found them before. Okay. Someone put them. Yeah, someone's transferred them into digital.
I know that there's a bunch of videos that Don Scott did that briefly summarised some of the main points that he talked about in his books, and you can certainly find those on YouTube. But yeah, if you want the detail, and I think you really need the detail, then that's a good place to start. And anytime, if you want to email me, my contact details are easily accessible, or John, happy to help. Okay, Stu. Is it reasonable to think an older or more experienced horse could pick itself up from being balked for a run more than a young, immature horse? From a mental perspective, I think if it's happened previously to an older horse, would he call on that experience, whereas a 2-year-old, for example, may switch off? Any thoughts? I suppose it's just an academic discussion, John. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it is honestly like a 2-year-old or any sort of inexperienced horse is more likely to retaliate to that interference much more, viciously, I guess. There are more chance of doing something crazy than an older horse for sure, but every count is, it depends what balked means, whether they won't take a run, whether they're shying at the field. There's a million different ways, but there's certainly more greenness, I guess you want to call it, in 2-year-olds and younger horses or inexperienced horses is much more likely, and they can improve far more significantly than an older horse can, without any real explanation other than they're learning their craft. And you can often not even see it. Like a horse can switch off. Anything can happen. They can hold their breath, and they can stop doing that. There's a million different things that no one can ever calculate in racing, and it's just you just got to across the board say that lightly raced horses can improve significantly without any explanation often.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's totally academic, but it makes sense. A more seasoned horse is likely to handle these things better than a young horse, and the young horses can improve so quickly and do things wrong, and improve those racing manners substantially. That allows them to progress very quickly. Okay, next couple of questions from Mitchell. First one is, how many bets on average do you both have a week? How many times do you try and turn over your betting bank per year? So I suppose that's the first question, so we might just start on that one. I actually cheated and went and had a look at my records earlier, and so far year to date, 1,176 bets and a turnover of around about 10, 11 times of my bank in that period. Look, some of those, or quite a few of those, would be saver bets, and I am backing more than one runner in a race often. But in terms of actual number of bets, to answer your question, 1,176, so that averages about 10.2 a day. But my guess would be, if you're a little bit more selective and you're having around about 20 bets a week, 1,000 bets a year sort of thing, then you gain, and you average about 1% of your bank on each selection, then you're probably going to turn your bank over around 10 times in that year. So it's not hard to work out, what your actual likely profit might be. I suppose in that situation, a $10,000 bank, you turn it over 10 times, it's 100,000. You win 10% on turnover, you win 10,000 for the year. It's not a lot of money, and there's obviously a fair bit of work that goes into being able to do that. But I suppose that's the importance of staking correctly and being able to finance yourself as somebody who might want to make a living out of the game. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a lot less as in terms of bets, but I'm the same as you. I sort of tend to target, somewhere between 10 and 15 races a week probably, and I probably turn over a little bit more on those races compared to someone who, a little bit more than the 1% sort of thing is probably more average for me. But this year, like, my turnover is probably about 80% down, I reckon, especially in the last month or so. I found it very difficult to have confidence in surfaces and horses preparations, which is really a big part of what I do. So, I've really cut back turnover wise, had a few bets, but nothing too drastic, and certainly pulled my staking back. So this period's been sort of, I've never seen anything like this in my time in racing. The whole time I've been in racing, this sort of period of wet tracks. I know this period is usually wet, but not constantly like this, and not bottomless. So I've found it's had a big impact on me, but usually sort of 10 to 15 races I'll bet in a week, and I do back, 1, 2, usually 2 or 3 runners a race.
Yeah, okay. So similar, probably, just a slightly different target in terms of what you're looking for. Do you always keep 100% of your bank liquid, or do you keep a small percentage of it in income-producing assets that you can easily liquidate if you need the funds? For me, my betting bank is totally liquid, so it's all cash sitting there. Other investments that I have, I hold through various trusts and my super fund and so forth. So it's all about liquidity when it comes to the betting side of it.
Yeah, I don't separate it. I don't handle. One of my goals for the near future is sort of taking that side of the business far more seriously, because I can't interrogate it to the level I'd want to either. And this sort of period between January and now has exposed a few holes in the way I do things. So kind of working on it. I sort of integrate it too much and don't separate things as much as I should. So I'm not a good person to learn off.
Okay. Over the last 2 years is the third part of his question, or another question. over the last 2 years during the pandemic, there's been a massive boom in the 18 to 30-year-old demographic getting into share trading. There are countless YouTube educational videos and social media groups dedicated to trying to make a profit on the ASX. Yet when I talk to people around my age, they don't often believe it's possible to make money from betting on racing. Why has racing done such a poor job of promoting the analytical side of betting to the public and the fact that it's possible to make a profit? And how could they promote it better? Well, the reason they've done such a poor job, Mitchell, is because racing administrators don't prioritise the punter, who is racing's only customer. If they were working in a business that I was running, they wouldn't have jobs. John?
Yeah, well, we've touched on this briefly, and I sort of suggested to you that I can't believe, considering the amount of money that's spent on pop-up races, and I get things like welfare, absolutely, but investments that are made by racing itself, big money investments on strange things when punters aren't addressed. And I kind of said that I can't believe they haven't bought a system, and it feels like I'm selling your system, but not yours or something similar, a ratings to win, something like that. I can't believe not just Racing New South Wales, because that's where I operate most, but all racing jurisdictions aren't interested in making this sort of level of information available to the gross population, because that's what people feed on. The more information you give them, the more they've got, at hand to make a decision with, the more likely they're to play in the space. And as we've talked about today, you got incorrect track ratings, incorrect times. So what hopes anyone got that's just coming from, not a racing background, but an analytical background, that every bit of information they've provided is basically incorrect. So why would you want to get involved? And it's sort of the same. It comes back to exactly what you said. It can only be either incompetence or a lack of respect for your only customer. And both of those things are pretty vital in most businesses.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be the way in racing, though, and it's very unfortunate. Administrators of days gone by were avid punters. You go back to the days of the likes of Jack Ingham and Bob Charlie and all those blokes that were just mad punters and loved the game for that. And that would be the reason, and that would be the priority. And it's just sadly not that way anymore. And I don't know what we can do to arrest the problem. We could certainly make changes to the wagering products and how they're marketed. But once again, what's Tabcorp going to do about that? They were under threat from takeover. They then sort of countered that with, well, we're going to demerge ourselves. This is the same board of directors that made the decision to do what they've done in the first place. Now want to revert. So,
and they want to attract new people to the industry, but they don't want you to have any chance of winning. They want you to, so that's another big problem. And then it's again, sounds like a big whinge, but if you're any sort of winner, it's certainly harder to participate in even turning money over. So, it's possible, but you've still got to be educated to do it. And that doesn't help encouraging new people to the industry. Oh, okay, I've had a couple of winning weeks now, I've been restricted. Like, what's the point of continuing on? There's a lot of problems, and it's all administrative problems. They're all pretty easily solved too.
And that's why you need bookmakers who have opinions, who are prepared to take positions. Sure, I mean, there's limits of what you can and can't bet. I understand the marketplace today, liquidity-wise, isn't what it was back in the 80s and 90s. But, hence our friends TopSport.com.au, who promote the show, and we should be talking about them because they do offer punters a fair go, and they do put their minimums up. They allow you to bet to at least a minimum, depending on what sort of racing it is, from the moment they put their prices up. And that's a lot better than a lot of them do. Some of the others are reasonably fair, but ultimately it's all about just weeding out those winning punters and just keeping the poker machine going, because that's the way they're treating it.
It does.
They're not trying to play numbers. They're not trying to play the head, I should say. They are literally it's just a mass poker machine.
Well, and a consistent winning punter, which is not a normal thing. It used to be the absolute, favourite client of a bookmaker back in the day. They could shape a book around one or two, solid clients and really, push their advantage in certain races. And they didn't have to have much of an idea about racing themselves. Okay, but Paul's betting backing 3 horses to beat this favourite. I think I'm going to be pushing this favourite. And they also had a lot of other edges, with stable money and things like that. That today, anyone that wins it, they don't even try and look through your history and understand where you're coming from. They just blanket ban everyone, and it's really sad.
It is. Okay, Tony asked, leading into the Queensland Carnival, how do you handle horses for courses, tracks like Eagle Farm, etc., and based on this, how do you assess a locally trained horse versus an interstate visitor? The differences between the interstate visitors and the local horses are accounted for already in the ratings process, so that doesn't even need to be talked about from my point of view. So I never look at a race and think, oh, well, that came out of a 78 at Rosehill, and therefore it's got to be stronger than this, class, whatever it is at Doomben or Eagle Farm. I just think that's just gibberish. It doesn't mean anything. If you produce good numbers and you put the work and the effort in, then I think you can rely on those numbers. There are certainly horses for courses. Eagle Farm is different, and it does provide opportunities, and some horses do go better there. It's a totally different sort of track, and they've done a great job getting it to a point now where it is racing really well, and they can pour plenty of water onto it, and it still races well. So I think it doesn't really matter whether you're racing in Brisbane or in Sydney or anywhere else. I mean, horses for courses, it's always been one of the tools that you use in coming up with your markets and how you assess horses, but that's the way I say to do it. John?
Yeah, it's it's an impossible question, as in you never know, but you've just got to use what tools you do have at hand, and maybe a horse, if it's just going to be the same. Like if it doesn't handle the conditions elsewhere, they're going to be similar. I don't think there's much in it, to be fair, and maybe you give a little bonus to horses that have handled those conditions that are local is the only way I could say handling. I wouldn't penalise too many horses that haven't seen the conditions, because that can really go against you, but you can probably be a little bit kinder to those who have handled it. It's probably the only way I'd look at it.
I think you can be aware of horses that fail to handle a track. As in,
yes.
they've shown a lot of evidence where they just don't go at certain tracks, or they just go at certain tracks. When there's plenty of clear evidence there, then I think you can make some weighted decisions. But everything's still just an adjustment. It's not a complete, I'm going to rule this horse out completely because of this.
Trying to predict a horse failing a surface would drive you round the twist.
Yes, absolutely.
A track especially.
And surface.
Yes.
Okay, question of the week from TopSport, from Matt this week. He wants to talk about regarding speed maps and penalties when handicapping. John, if you want to bring that question up on the screen.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Sorry. Sleeping.
$100 courtesy of TopSport to Matt. Obviously, there's a number of factors in relation to bias, field size, tempo, etc. that could be factored in. What's the maximum penalty you give a horse, pen job, or just number of lengths? Look, I'm going to say it could be as much as 12 or more pounds, the difference between the best and the worst map, which is a huge difference in terms of the price or the effect that it has on price on horses. There are lots of factors that go into those calculations. Never a pen job, never. And I think anyone that thinks that that is a viable strategy needs to think about what they're doing a little bit more. And a great example, or a recent example, I think, of this type of scenario was Straight Aaron a few weeks ago, when it started off at an odds-on favourite, looked immoral on paper, or looked at terribly strong chance of winning the race, and I was very keen on it. But I was also a little bit aware of the track playing the way it ended up playing, on pace advantaging horses and making it difficult for horses to come from behind. And on race morning, I had it odds on, but by the time I made some adjustments on the fly to the map penalties, it came out 5-2. And difference between what I had it at 4-6 and 5-2 is around about 31% in actual probability, which is huge, massive. Now, it never got to that price, but had it got to around that 5-2, I would have been still happy to back it, despite the fact that it lost the race. But everything is just a measurement of proportions here. There's no absolutes, and there's certainly no pen jobs.
I made a mistake the other day at Canterbury. There was a horse that Willie Pike rode. It was an Oakfield horse, and I marked the race. I marked it leading originally, and marked the horse about $6, and then from a wide draw. There were 2 changes of tactics, intention to lead from 2 other horses drawn underneath it. And I stupidly went back, changed my market, thought that Oakfield would sort of be taken back, a 1-paced horse, and changed it from $6 to $16. So that's sort of how big a difference in the market. Pardon me?
Was this last week?
This was last Wednesday, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Which race was it in?
Oakfield something it was that won the race. Was it the Wednesday before? It was definitely before. Canterbury. Last Wednesday was.
When they called the races off.
No, it led.
Have I got the wrong meeting?
Last Wednesday, 20th. It was called. Oh, sorry, I've got the wrong one. Global Osbred, not an Oakfield horse. Osbred horse. Sorry.
Okay.
Race 5 last Wednesday.
Race 5.
So there was a Waller horse came out with a change of tactics. And then there was a Marek. Was it the Cebus came out with a change of tactics, and there was another horse drawn under it that came out change of tactics. Both would be ridden forward, and I just thought they might have bluffed Willie Pike out of going forward, and he'd go back, and that was sort of how big a change in the market mine was anyway. So I changed it from 6 to 16, and it was off the map, led and pissed in, and I cried.
Yeah. So my map, the way my map. Penalties and bonuses are done, they're automatic. Unless I literally go through and mark changes, like I did in that Straight Arrow instance, but there's still a formula I follow for that. And it turns out that horse was neutral, so it had no penalty, no bonus. And I suppose it was relatively findable at the prices they bet. What did they bet in that race, John?
I think it was definitely double figures.
It was started around 9-10 to 1, didn't it? From memory, yeah.
I think it started shorter, even maybe totes wise. And sorry, I should know. I just haven't checked, but the
totes
SP.
Was
I didn't SP $10. So yeah, but it was. They must have bet $14 or $15 then. But it's it was very solid late in betting, which I thought was scary because I expected it to be soft. And I remember making a comment in our chat room saying, betting says this horse may still be going forward. And it did, but I wasn't smart enough to react. But that was this will be the one, and the Cebus were change of tactics. That's the thing that scares me about those rules. Like they sort of take into account the intention to lead. Says to me they're coming out super positive, and half the time they just sort of flop out because they think they're going to get the front and they don't. I just can't wait for them to get rid of that rule.
Well, when it went around in that Goulburn race was a lot stronger than your typical Goulburn standard. It was more of a provincial race.
Yes.
And the figures weren't bad out of that race. So I can understand. And the sectional numbers from the 800, I ran second best sectional rating of the day, and last 200, 8th best, 7th best last 400, 5th best last 600 rating. So there was, I suppose, a bit of upside. It was only had 2 starts going into that Canterbury race, this prep. It got the job done, and bit of a bonus going from G Buckley to W Pike.
It did, and the outside draw sort of said that there's a good chance they would push forward because it was a 1-pace type. But I made the wrong call and thought they may be passive once they changed the tactics. But I just sort of it was just that's the sort of difference. A horse going back that's 1-paced around a track like Canterbury that suits on pace and it's hard to run on, sort of back and wide. That's how big a difference in the market the position in run can be.
Well, there was a big advantage that day to be on speed, and in fact, if you weren't within about a length of the leader, 2 lengths back at worst, you were a shot duck, weren't you?
Good night, Irene.
Yes, no, good ride too. And often that wide barrier for the on-pace horses is a gift for punters
if you use it. It's but it's a very good question because it shows the difference in like set up around certain tracks. Sometimes it's like you say, an inside draw to an outside draw can be a huge difference. I thought Taxu was much better suited Saturday because of the outside draw. Didn't work out that way because there's 5 horses, but this is when there was a full field. It's just it's a huge impact on a final pricing whether you do it the way you do or the way I do. I think it shows that the difference you can apply to a horse simply from the map is, significant.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that's the show this week, punters. We are back on Thursday for Rapid Fire. There's some Brisbane races that we'll be looking at as we start off with the Brisbane Carnival this weekend. There's a bit of group racing there. As for the show next week, John, I'm not sure how we're going to fit that in. I'm in Warrnambool for the week. And then
okay, I think I'm down there for one day in Melbourne or something. So, we'll work it out. We'll work it out if you want to do something or not.
We'll work out how we're going to do it there, and heading down to the Bull and for some spirited betting, and a couple of guys down there. And
this is a first.
We should have a good time. First time for me. I haven't been there before.
Wow.
So it's definitely been on the bucket list for a long time, and obviously the last few years has been off the table. But we'll be there, and some great restaurants in Melbourne to take advantage of, and Caulfield Saturday. We'll be going to the Caulfield Saturday meeting as well.
I think that there'll be a few people up and about after the missing the last couple of years too. It'll be an interesting year to be down there. I hope it's good fun.
Okay, punters, thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of it this week, and onwards to Thursday. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.